What is going on, everybody? Happy Monday. BobbyFi with my man Eric Sheets, and he is riding quite the heater, and he's running as hot as my Rams are. So we're, I'm happy about the Rams winning. That's what my most exciting thing is. I had a little bit of a good Sunday, but Sheets, talk a little bit about a great Friday, a good Sunday, and
So Friday I won the fadeaway for 100K with on 30 lineups, which was obviously really cool and exciting. And then on Sunday, I had like some sick sweats in the football that just kind of fizzled. But I ended up winning the 555 in basketball that day, yesterday. And I do have a couple of comments. I talked about this during our live stream on Saturday and Sunday, but I figured I would throw it out there for you guys as well. Just two different observations. Number one is, be careful with content providers and people that like put out screenshots and kind of imply that like that particular lineup that happened to have gotten there was like the one lineup they did, like they did it on purpose. I mean, here's something that it's not that they have evil intentions or whatever. But what happens is you take like my fadeaway thing. Like I did a whole process where I come with 30 lineups, right? And they all went in, and one of them, hit for all the money. And then what it is, I post the screenshot because that's kind of what you're supposed to do. But that's like tends to imply that the particular lineup I kind of like did on purpose. In other words, people will just look at that lineup and say, "Oh, you see what he did here? He played this guy. Of course, Killian Hayes is a good play." Ooh, and then he paired him with this. Don't you see why Sheets is so great because he did this? It's not like that. It's the process of putting all the lineups together. You throw them all in as a portfolio, and one of them happens to get there. Then your process was good, but don't get all hung up with screenshots. And I wanted to do it just to show people, that our process does well. But that's just something to think about. Second observation is that specifically to the 555 from yesterday reminded me that we talk about this a lot with Bobby, is that you don't have to go completely ballistic to win like the bigger buy-ins or the smaller amount of entries. You usually just need like one or two kind of pivots to kind of get it done. That's one thing. Second thing, that it doesn't have anything to do with my big basketball hits. It has more to do with my football kind of near hit. Was this. We talk about this a lot with respect to basketball and football, the idea of whether they're good streaks and hot streaks and whether running hot means anything. And we talked about this a little bit in our live stream, but I figured if people are watching this a little bit more today, I'll go into this with respect to playing DFS. Yes, it is DFS, and you play, and then if you don't do well, you play the next day. You're not supposed to worry about the day before. But when you do have a good result, it allows you to have the confidence in making an aggressive play that if you're running like shit, you might not have it in you to make. And we talk about this in poker. If someone's like not winning a hand forever, they're a bit less likely to put that huge bluff out there, even though they know it's a good play. But if they've been running really hot, they'll be more inclined to make that right play. And I bring up the P. Ryan play from yesterday. Okay, now it turns out I made a little bit of money. I didn't make a lot of money, but I was in the position to make a shit ton of money because of that. Mm-hmm. And I played him in like the monster at 0.2% ownership.
Right.
And I promise you that unless you're kind of running good, you're just not going to do it. You know what I mean? It's just not going to happen. So just kind of like accept that we are just humans. And if you're running well, you're going to have that confidence. So I guess you can think about it a couple of ways. Number one is, if you're not running well, try to pretend you are, I suppose.
Right.
But again, just respect that when it comes to players when you're analyzing as well. If people are in good streaks, they'll be more likely to shoot. And people will be more likely to pass them and things like that. I don't know. I figured I'd get all
I totally think those are all really good points. And the only thing I would say an exception sometimes about is like about the lineup building thing is if you're making 20 or 30, sure, but if you have like one lineup in a tournament, it's a little bit of a different situation, like the monster yesterday,
Yes.
But I really appreciate. I really agree with what you're saying. With all that, let's get into today's slate. It's a pretty nice little slate. We unfortunately are going to have some mega chalk and probably some really extreme value plays, which is going to make it a stars and scrub slate. That's my first look. But we're going to let Sheets do a little of the talking because he keeps winning everything. So I'm not going to. I'll sit back and listen to you talk first. So why don't we pull your screen up and start with.
What's interesting about it is I ran my projections. It wasn't that long ago, but somewhat long ago. And when you mentioned to me that there's going to be a huge mega chalk, I immediately looked at my board. I'm like, I don't see it quite yet. So there's probably something that I missed. And I'm kind of like interested in suspense. I don't want to even do the research. I want to like wait till we get to it before we come up to it. So let's start out with New Orleans and Cleveland. And at current look, I don't have a lot of anything in here. I have Rondo with a question mark, and literally that's it from the whole game at this early look. What do you got here?
Yeah, I mean, it's really hard to know with Ingram, Valanciunas, and Hart all questionable. Obviously, I would be interested in playing Devontae Graham or Nickeil Alexander-Walker if those guys are out. I would even consider maybe Herbert Jones, but it really just depends on what the situation is with those three. And then if any one of those three play, I would play one of those three. I think that's all reasonable. My guess is that you're going to get at least two of them to play. So I don't really have a whole lot of love for anything on the Cleveland side. I think that you could always make it a good argument, and it's a good matchup for Darius Garland. But I think that there's just better plays. But I could see myself ending the day. There's a chance I could end up with some Garland today, but I don't. That's not my current plan.
Moving on.
Yeah, moving on. What about the Clippers and Indy?
Again, right now I only have on the Clipper side just a very, very marginal Isaiah Hartenstein play, and not much. But I do the Indiana guys, Sabonis and Duarte look to be decent. Not standouts or anything like that, but these are kind of like the kinds of plays that if they show up in like a lottery or something like that, I wouldn't kick them out. I mean, to me, not to barely. I mean, to me, like most of the plays are going to come from one game. But if you do want to take a shot on the 7 o'clock game, Sabonis had an insane game in overtime a few games ago, and then he had a back-to-back. I think he did well in the back-to-back too somehow.
Yeah.
So I do like Sabonis, and I like Duarte, and not much on the Clippers.
Yeah, I don't know what I'm going to do with Sabonis, Duarte, and that whole situation. I also do think that you can mention. I mean, these guys for the Clippers, like I still think Terrence Mann's in play at 3,800. I think Reggie Jackson is in play at 5,300. I think that Zubac is in play at 4,500. I think Reggie Jackson actually is probably a little bit better of a play than he's getting credit for. And I could definitely see myself ending up going there. I know he's, we've had some rough games, but I mean, he did put up 34 yesterday. A good match against Charlotte. But I kind of like Reggie Jackson here, and I'm interested to see if the Clippers maybe rest some people on a back-to-back, which could open up even more for Reggie Jackson. It's been kind of weird with the Clippers rotations because they really are just like playing the hot hand game, and I can't just credit them. They've done a good job with it. Like to not have two top 15 or top 20 wherever you see them players in the NBA, and you really sort of have to piece things together. They've really done they're a decent team considering. But Duarte and Sabonis are both somewhat appealing to me on the other side. I think that I will probably play one of those guys in at least one of my two main lineups on DraftKings or something. That's where I stand right now, but again, things subject to change, but those would be my favorite plays. I think Duarte probably being my favorite just because of the price at 5K.
All right, let me start with this next one, if you wouldn't mind.
Yeah, go ahead.
So let me tell you, I posted my projections up about 20 minutes ago. Let me start with what I was going to say. But I really think Embiid is a really, really strong play today. I think that he clearly is like the best spend up, and there's like a lot of value later on that you can get him in. So I really would not fade him. If he's like 60% owned, I'm going to do it. So let me go. Oh, I think I see what you mean now.
Yeah.
So I'm just pulling it up, and I just see Embiid is out. So I suppose, without doing a hell of a lot of data mining, that Andre Drummond at 3,700 is going to be kind of a tough fade. That's going to be. Yeah. I guess that's what you were kind of getting at. So as I was about to say, never mind. All the Philly guys are in play, and we got to see who's starting. We got to see all of it, but starting with Drummond and Tobias Harris and then see who else we think is going to get the minutes. So yeah, that was what you were getting at, which I missed. One thing I did want to mention, something is amiss. I don't know if it's going to change with Embiid out, but do you know the projections I had for Morant today? So I went to, first I ran it with like all the different, aggregates and all the stuff, and I see it, I'm like, that can't be right. So what I have to do is I have to go to each site, and I want to see if there's any outlier. One guy I projected with a 0 or something like that, that's bringing it down. But no, I think like across the board, he's being projected for like 42 fantasy points or something like that, or 40. And my half sarcastic comment is, what about the second half?
Yeah.
I don't quite get that literally at all. I don't understand whatsoever. And everybody's in agreement with it. So
I 100% agree with you.
Yeah, I mean, the guy gets 60 fantasy points a game. I don't know why.
He had 144 fantasy point game. It's just in the last game, and on the other side of that is like 760 point games in a row.
I'll just throw out there that I'll put out my wager to the projection modelers out there. If you guys want to take under 42, I'll even give you like 6 to 5 odds. How about that? I'll be a sweetheart. In any case, it does change things a little bit, right? So with Embiid out, it could be a problem for Philadelphia. Although, I mean, you listen. I don't know whether I had you pay more attention to this, and now you've been paying more attention than everybody has. But dude, it doesn't matter. Like when you have guys out, the rest of the team just does wonders. Did you see all those guys out for freaking San Antonio? They go into Phoenix and almost win the game.
Yeah,
freaking craziness. And this is what happens. So this could be blowout issues, but I don't know. If I'm seeing John Morant at 5% ownership, if that's even remotely accurate, sign me up, and I'll just throw my projections out the window if you want to know the truth. But obviously, I'll leave it to you and leave it to all of us to figure out this Philly thing. But obviously, you're gonna have to play Andre Drummond like probably 3 others, right?
Yeah, I honestly, I mean, at the moment, I don't see a world of fading Drummond on either side, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
I think this game is very stackable. In terms of interest levels, I would go Drummond, followed by Curry, followed by Harris, followed by Maxey, followed by Yang, probably. And I wouldn't, I wouldn't write off Thibault either. I just think you can get, you can take 4 pieces or 5 from the Philly side, and I think it's viable. I probably am going to lean more 3 or 4, but I would run it back with one of Bane, Jackson, Melton, or Morant. Now that's a lot of guys, and you have other guys coming, that are back, and the people are sort of projecting that's going to. John Morant is a great play at 10-1. I don't care. It's not going to work out every time. I'm not saying that so much better than everybody else, but he's a really good play, and all of these guys are really good plays in my opinion. I don't know if anybody is noticing what DeAnthony Melton is doing.
Oh, I have.
I mean, it's pretty wild. Like, he's put up 35 or more in 4 out of 5. Oh no, sorry, put up 30 or more. He had 130. But at 35, like, I mean, he's just been going nuts. And this is what I was saying about this guy. Like, he can do it, and you almost don't know really when it's coming. And the minutes could drop at any time because they've got a lot of bodies. But I still think he's worth taking a tournament stab at. So I don't know which one I like the most. I think Bane is the one I feel the safest with. But I do like Bane, Triple J, and Melton as in addition to Morant. I don't think I would play them together with Morant. I think I would play Morant or one of them. But I do like this game a lot, and still only a 3.5 point spread. So I think this is a great game to target, and I don't think that's obviously off the board or anything. But I do think getting some of the Melton, some of the Bane, some of the Triple J, that is going to be off the board. So and Morant. So I think getting a game stack there with like a 4-1 or even a 4-2 potentially is a good way to go.
I'll tell you this. I mean, given everything I just said about how the team, rallies around, missing a guy and stuff, I still think Memphis only 3.5 is kind of ridiculous. I think they're going to slaughter.
In Philly, I don't know if I agree with that.
Okay, could be. Well,
road back to back. Oh, is it? Wait, hold on. Let me double check that. I had it as a back to back, but let me just make sure I'm not wrong. I might be wrong on that actually.
Yeah, they played a couple of days ago.
Yeah, it was Saturday that they played. Not. Yeah, my bad. But yeah, I think it's reasonable. I see what you're saying though. I think I would bet Memphis with the points if that was still the case. But I don't think it's that crazy. It makes sense to me a little bit. Certainly makes more sense to me than that Suns and Utah line from last week. And I understand what you're saying about the
Right.
back-to-back.
Right.
I could not figure that one out. Like that
Yeah.
was just sort of took me away. It took me my
Yeah.
whatever. All right, Miami, Boston. What do you got over here, Sheets?
Not much. The usual guys. I think Bam looks good every day. I think Butler looks good every day. And I like both of them. And I don't really like too much from Boston. You like, I mean, nothing fancy for me.
Yeah, not an ideal match. But I do like Bam or Butler. I think I would actually, I don't know, actually. It's a really close between those two for me. I think I would give Jimmy the edge, but I like both of them. And as I always mention with Boston, you can always take that shot on, I mean, I always say one of them, but the price of Tatum is making it a little trickier for me. So I don't think that playing Jalen is a terrible play, but I don't think it's bad. I just don't think I'm necessarily going to end up with it. And I think that everybody looks fine to me. I don't have like any love for any player. The prices are good. The matchup is not. I would probably just lean those two guys. And then if you want to take a shot at Marcus Smart, because at this price of 5,300, I don't mind that either. But it's just a lot of meh for me in this game. So I'm happy to move past it. Toronto, Atlanta.
This, you know what's interesting about this game? I mean, maybe there's not a single player on the injury report.
That's incredible.
Except when you have to go all the way down to like Aaron Baines and Tim Birch, who haven't played the whole year or whatever.
Aaron Baines has disappeared off the face of the earth. Really sad.
Did you read that whole thing?
Yeah, pretty brutal.
That's crazy.
Yeah, pretty nuts.
So on the one hand, you get Atlanta, Toronto completely healthy. You're probably not going to get too much value, but Fred VanVleet is 8,700 in Coors Field. I don't know. Maybe I'll try it. And Trae Young always has 60, 70 point upside. Maybe I'll try that. Look, with Drummond being kind of a placeholder, you could spend up for like a lot of dudes. And I'd be remiss to not mention Trae and Fred VanVleet as two guys you could care for.
Yeah, I definitely have a lot of interest in this whole Toronto side, especially. This spread feels funny to me too a little bit. Atlanta by 2, which it's a back-to-back for them, so they could sit some people. Just keep that in mind. The rotations are just so tight for Toronto. It's really hard, especially in a pace-up game, to not have interest here. It actually feels like a lower total than I even would have thought. But I would rank.
What is it? 230?
220.
Okay. Wow, it is weird, huh?
Yeah, isn't that a little lower than you'd guess? I would rank my guys VanVleet, OG, Trent, and Siakam as like a tie, but I like all of them. I think they're all. I think I have interest in all of them, but VanVleet's my number one. On the Atlanta side, I really want to see if in fact they do. Well, Capella's out, right? Oh no, he's not. He's in. Oh my God, you're right.
He's on the injury report.
We'll see if everybody actually plays. My guess is Atlanta sits somebody on the back-to-back, but maybe not. It's possible they don't. They haven't been like playing them a million minutes, so. I don't really have interest in anything on Atlanta except for Trae as a potential play, but even that's a bad matchup. Bogdanovich is getting more reasonable. DeAndre Hunter is fine. I don't know. I'd like to find some other pieces because I like the whole Toronto side of things. But I don't know if I really can run anything back here.
So I want to share something with you guys. So when I put my sheets together, or whatever, I never put any of the underlying data that came up with the projections, like usage and all that stuff. But when we were doing the optimizer and we were just kind of like asking for things to put in, Bobby was saying, maybe you should put minutes in there whatever. And typically I don't want to do it because, everything gets factored into the projection. I don't want to put that separately, but I thought it had use. And so I've been putting the minutes in. I want to show you something. I'm going to pull this up here. I just sorted this whole slate by minutes.
Yeah, it'll all be Toronto.
It's all Toronto.
Yeah.
1, 2, 3, 6th and 7th are all the Toronto guys. And it'll also let you know who's probably starting. And which is kind of amazing to see, to visualize there. That's just what they do. Okay, you want to move on?
Let's move on. Talk about Sacramento and your Knicks.
Holmes, maybe, and then Randall, maybe. That's pretty much all I had from this game.
Yeah, it feels like we should like want, but the Knicks are a really tough team to DFS play. I do think Holmes is at a like it's a bad matchup, but the price is getting a little bit silly. And I know he hasn't had the big game in a while, but we know that it's in there. 5K is definitely interesting. If De'Aaron Fox, doesn't play, obviously that opens up a bunch. But honestly, like I guess RJ Barrett or Randall. But I don't like love any of it. I think that maybe Randall we should give a bump up just because it's such a good matchup, but not crazy about it personally. I mean, Julius Randle, I mean, talk about fantasy like just dropping off the face of the earth. Like I know he's had a couple outlier games, but I don't know. He's gonna get people are really gonna play him at 9K. Like this guy puts up like 20 fantasy points every night.
Right.
It's crazy. I mean, actually, sure, maybe something changes.
I'm gonna have to find a way to play Butler at 8,900 as opposed to Randall at
Yeah,
9K.
that's same here. That's where I'm at. Go ahead.
Okay. Golden State, Houston.
Yep.
Yeah. So Curry, I guess again is a toss. I don't know. I prefer the value guys in Golden State. Now again, when I was looking at this, I originally had the idea of playing Embiid with a Portland OKC stack, which we'll get to later, and filling in some other one-offs. And so I was looking at this Golden State game. I looked at Mooney a little bit, but I needed the center spot for Embiid at the time I was looking at it. But now that you need the center spot for Drummond, it's the same issue. But I do like Bielitsa a little bit if he plays as a little bit
Projecting really well, like almost too well. Like
yeah,
you know what I mean? It seems a little fishy because the minutes are always in flux with that team, and it seems weird that he'll all of a sudden play 22. I don't know. It just seems a little bit high to me. But go ahead.
I agree with that. I mean, I totally agree with that. By the way, before I leave this, as I sort these by just pure value, I do see, by the way, before we forget about that other game, that Me Too looked like a good price at 3,700. In the Sacramento game for whatever. So Bielitsa, yeah, I agree with that assessment. By the way, he is seemed to be projecting a little too well. But this is not the first time this has happened. So about a week ago, when I ran these numbers, like at this time of the day, I was basically had 95% Bielitsa in my builds, and it was like 6% ownership. I'm like, what the hell's going on? By the time the game went off, all the projections kind of like regressed, and he was basically just like an average play. Kind of guessing again that sort of happens again. I just have the feeling that since your instincts are that it's too high, I feel as though it probably is too high.
Like, could he get 24 minutes if he's hot or something? Sure, but like, why would he all of a sudden be projected to play 22 minutes when he's only done that once? And like,
no, me, it's even worse. I have him only projected for 18 minutes, and yet still like 19 fantasy points.
Yeah, that 18 though, that sounds more reasonable to me. At least I can get behind that minutes projection. But yeah, it's a lot of bodies in Golden State, and I just everybody could put up a ceiling game against Houston. They are they are legitimately Coors Field. Like, I mean, Atlanta's like, okay, they're like Yankee Stadium or something, or Boston or Baltimore or something like that. But I mean, Houston is just garbage on defense. So it would be fun to try and take a shot on one of these guys. Just feels a little too early for Clay, but at some point I think he's gonna score like 40 real life points in like 24 minutes or something, and we're gonna wonder why we didn't play him. But this is not. I don't think this is the spot where I'm gonna try to do it, and I don't really love anything on the Houston side either. Do you have any interest in Houston at all?
Nope.
All right.
Okay, so to me, this
maybe
is
Eric Gordon. I'll throw that one maybe Eric Gordon. That's the only one. Sorry.
So to me, I'm not going to be playing it. This was my initial build going into this whatever. What I was going to do is I was going to play Embiid at the center, and then just stack the crap out of this game. I was going to play the Portland game. I was going to play McCollum and Nurkic on the Portland side, and then play about 4 OKCs, starting with Giddey, and then just filling them in. I had Kenrick Williams, Baisley, Trey Mann. There were other guys. There's Ty Jerome, who was viable also. Earl was viable also. And then I was slipping, Bielitsa in that last forward spot, and this was going to be it, right? I really, with Shea out, that's what I was going to do. Now, given that Embiid is out, it's a whole nother story, right? Now you could probably, I'm not going to necessarily do this, but let's just say you could play Drummond here. Then you have 8,300 to spend, and like, you know what I'm saying? So now there's other things that you can do. But that doesn't change the fact that I think this Portland OKC game is an incredible game to stack because of that, what I just said. You know, with Shea out, you have Giddey and all these guys projecting to be really strong values, and you got Portland, who I like both Nurkic and McCollum. I think that that's a really, really strong game to stack. And I'm probably going to continue to focus on that.
Yeah, I get very nervous with OKC's stacks. I think they did price up Giddey a little bit, but I like him. I think that he would be my favorite play if you want to know the truth.
Yeah, sure.
It's really hard for Trey. Like there's like these Trey Man, Muscala, Kenrich Williams plays. Kenrich is actually a real good, like a real life basketball player. I wish they'd played him more and all that stuff. But I think you mentioned it to me yesterday on the show, like that Trey Man was going to be 7 million % owned or whatever on the set. I don't know where he ended up.
No, actually, it was Trey Jones who smashed.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Trey Man, I'd put, but again, he played 27 minutes and he put up 17 fantasy points. Kenrich Williams keeps putting up 10 fantasy. This is right on the table for these guys. Like it's one of them, sure. Ty Jerome maybe, like somebody maybe gets there. They did call Robinson Earl up from the G League.
Well, can we just do this then? I mean, like, can we just do this? Can we just do Giddey, the good guys? Can we just go Giddey, McCollum, and Nurkic, and then screw the values?
Yeah, I don't think playing McCollum and Nurkic is optimal, but it certainly could get there. Like, I just don't see that as I mean, definitely, I think that McCollum and Nurkic are both going to be owned, but I don't think people are going to play them together because they definitely do take away from each other. So if you're going for ceilings, I think it's okay though. I think on this.
Why do that? But I'm curious why, because again, if you ask like a basketball guy, I'm like, why should they take from each other?
It's not like Nurkic is not getting assists from McCollum. Like he's getting the ball in the post and he's either creating for himself or somebody else. Now it actually might work the other way sometimes, but part of Nurkic's value when he's had his big games is he does get a few assists for you. Like, he does have some serious usage.
Okay.
So that's, but in general, I'm not saying all guards and big men, like they can have both, they can both get 40 something, but it feels unlikely for both of them to get to 50. And I think there are other players in this price range that we've talked about that I expect to be in that 50 range, like Fred VanVleet being one. So I would personally go a little bit more that route. But again, I think it's fine. I would rather do it like with a Norman Powell with one of these guys, you know what I mean? A guy who's maybe doesn't need all the usage but can get there other ways, even though I don't love Powell like individually playing him for DFS at this price. Simons, I think that his usage, I mean, it's been solid. It's actually taken away a little bit from the what we expect usually from McCollum with Lillard out. Yeah. So all of those guys are in play. I have McCollum as the best and Nurkic as the third best. Simons and Powell, I don't know which one. One of them probably gets there a little more often, I think. And then on the other side, I really don't know what to do. I think just Dort and Giddey are going to be the way I would play this. But could Darius Baisley have a game here? Sure. Like they just still have a lot of bodies, and they tend to, in these situations in the past, they've really just spread it out, and that just worries me. With the exception of Dort and Giddey.
Yeah, I really like Giddey here. I just don't. I just haven't seen Portland stop anybody in a while.
I agree with you. And Giddey's really good. Have you watched him play?
You know, when he gets rebounds also.
Yeah, he does everything. He's a really, really good young player.
By the way, not to stray too much, because we're pretty done anyway. I'll tell you my freaking hero. I mean, you were telling me about him when he was back when he was 3K, when we were first starting to give him his minutes and stuff. This Cade Cunningham is all over the place. I mean, he is so freaking active. He's like scrambles for rebounds, scrambles for loose. He is like a fantasy freaking gold mine, even when he's not freaking shooting well. Yeah. That guy's nuts.
Yeah, he's also he's also going to be a really, really good real life player. And I kind of feel bad for him because he happened to be in the Evan Mobley draft. So he's going to always be looked at as a little bit funny because he's going to be an all-star for a lot of his career. But Evan Mobley is going to be a top 5 player for every year of his career, starting like next year, probably. Anyway. All right, guys. So I have my priorities as Drummond is an obvious one. One of Curry, Harris, or Maxey, in addition to him at least, and I like Curry the most.
Seth Curry,
yeah. At 5,300, I like him the most. Bane, Morant, or Triple J. I think that I lean Bane as being the safest to get near his 30 whatever projection. But for ceiling, I think Ja is a really good play, and I think Triple J has a ceiling as well. Bam or Butler. Fred VanVleet, and then all the Toronto guys. But I think that VanVleet is going to be my favorite of those guys, even though all of like Siakam, I mean, I did my order already on that one. One of the Blazers at least, but I would lean McCollum as my favorite. And then one of the OKCs, and I would lean Giddey as my favorite. Other guys to be included that, maybe Duarte or Sabonis, Reggie Jackson, Luke Kennard, and Terrence Mann are all on my potential list, especially if somebody sits on the second of the back-to-back.
So we'll have a here's a question I'll throw out there. We'll see who's closer or whatever it is. Well, I mean, you'll probably get it right. What's the biggest buy in the NBA night? Is it 777 or 600?
600.
So the 600. What is Andre Drummond going to be owned in the 600?
98.6%.
98.6.
I don't see a fadeable route here. I really don't. And me, Sheets. I'm not a lock in. Do all this. I might mess around in one of my cheaper buys.
So you can lock him in and get overweight.
I don't know how you're supposed to fade him. I really don't. Like he can struggle here and put up 30, like that's what you want from him. I mean, I don't know how you fade that. Like
I agree.
So that's as of right now. And I by the way, if he was 5K, I'd be saying the same thing. Doesn't make any difference to me.
That's a more interesting question, right?
Yeah. And if he's gonna get lower
if you were like 7,200,
if he was 7,200, I'd still be playing.
Yeah, I'm just at 7,200, maybe he'd only be 50%.
Yeah, exactly. 7,200, I have him like 30, 40% or something like that. Yeah, exactly. But that's how much of that's a pretty big deal when you could double the guy's price. And it takes you that just to get him to be an average play.
Okay.
All right, guys. Well, good luck. I'll be around at 6. Sheets, are you going to be around?
I will.
Okay, excellent. So we will see you guys at 6, and let's make some money tonight. Let's pull a Sheets.
Let's do it.
Ready?